Hello YouTube, it's Quantum Blondes here with another Final Fantasy video. I haven't done one on this channel in a long time, but I've recently reached over 1,000 hours. See, right over here on the PlayStation dashboard I got about 1,300 hours. So let me go ahead and put the playtime in right there, 57 days times 24. I did the math, it adds up to about 1,381 hours and 52 minutes, so yeah, let's just get into this, starting with ranged damage. The game separates between physical and magical ranged DPS, but one of the magical ranged DPS is Blue Mage, and that's a limited job, so if you don't count that job, you have 7 ranged versus 6 melee. I'm starting off with range damage, but we'll talk about melee damage or close range damage when we get there. So this is mainly because there's only physical melee, there's no magical melee. Range damage is all about doing damage from far away, and typically physical range damage you can move while attacking, whereas magical range damage you have a cast time, so you have to stand still. There are 3 physical range damage, and that's Bard, Machinist / Gunslinger, and the Dancer. And in the game for magical ranged, you have Black Mage, which is what I'm using, but you also have Summoner, you have Red Mage, and you have Pictomancer. In my 1,000 hours of playing, I haven't tried a physical range damage. I've only tried magical range, and the one I've only got over 50 is Black Mage, even though some of these start at different levels. When your role is DPS, or damage per second, your number one priority is to try and do as much damage as possible with all the skills that you have, making sure that you're doing proper rotation. Black Mage is a little tricky because basically you do fire spells to make your mana go down, then you do ice spells to make your mana go back up. But there are a plethora of other magical range DPS. If like Summoner's more your fancy, you want to summon like a Carbuncle or something to help you fight, or if you want to be like an archer, you do physical range damage. Here, let's take a closer look at our party so we can see our composition, and most importantly, the damage dealers for right now. All damage dealers have red icons. So going based off of our party, as me at the top, you'll eventually just learn the icons and the symbols. But the comment coming down is Black Mage, and then under that Noelle is playing the Reaper. You can kind of see it looks like a head holding a scythe. Then under that you have Kazuya, or Kayuza, and he's a bard. And you can tell it's a bard because it looks like a little lyre, the instrument. And then all the way at the bottom you have the Dancer. Can't remember how we died here, but you can see all both the healers are up, and we have LB3, so just waiting for it. It's like the old school Mercy Res and Overwatch. Here he comes. There we go. Just like I said, we're about to finish this boss off, so before I finish this off, I wanted to talk about kiting and how that's a really big maneuver, that range damage you have to learn. Basically you're attacking and then you're taking a step back, so the person that's trying to attack you they're just continuously running towards you, but you just keep hitting them from range and they need to hit you melee. So speaking of melee, let's go ahead and do the melee DPS I'm assigning limit break to my hotbars because I'm not used to playing melee damage, but yeah, let's see how this goes. Alright, moving on to melee DPS. There are 6 classes, and melee DPS is for those people that want to just be up in front, on the front lines, ball on the back lines, because you're behind the tank. But you're just trying to do as much much damage as possible with a melee weapon. Alright, for melee DPS, or damage per second, we have the 6 classes. We're starting with Monk. Then we also have the Dragoon. We have the Ninja. We have the Samurai. We have the Reaper, which is what I'm using. And then we have the new class, which is the Viper. Each of the 6 melee DPS classes brings a lot to a party. Just different ways of utilizing combos in order to keep their rotations fresh and engaging. But as you can see here, in this group, besides me as the Reaper, we have Wonder Wallaby as a Viper. And the Viper is dual weapon, dual swords class. So the melee DPS typically stands behind the boss, and if you have a group of enemies, there are AoE, which is area of effect, abilities that you can use to claw a large group down. Now, when doing melee DPS, you don't have to move around as much as I'm doing, but that's just because I can't just stand in one place. If I can attack and move, then I'm gonna attack and move. So you can see me trying to avoid the stuff on the ground. So that's basically what this game is. If you played WoW and you're coming over to Final Fantasy, just know that Final Fantasy is very polished, even with the new expansion. People have probably been hating on Down Trail, but I mean, I've played halfway through it, stream it over on Twitch, and the story's been really fun, and the dungeons are pretty cool. This is I believe a Stormblood trial. So oh, that's one thing I didn't talk about for damage before we switch over. Damage gets the longest queue time, so I was very glad to do that trial. Now, switching over to the healer. The first thing to notice about the healing class is that it is kind of identical to the damage class, whereas it's split into 2 groups. So here, let's look at our party while we're killing this trash mob, and we'll go over the 2 different types of healers, since we luckily have the 2 different types of healers in our party. So alright, looking at the green icons for healer, you see mine looks like 2 cards. That's Astrologian. And then my companion healer, his name is Corin. His icon looks like 3 stars or something like that. That's the Sage healing class, and the Sage healing class is a shield mitigating healing class, whereas the Astrologian is an AP or HP healing class. It just shoots out huge pools of HP to heal, whereas the Sage uses shields to kind of try and mitigate damage. The other shield healer in the game is the Scholar, and then the other HP healing class is the White Mage. So if these 2 healing classes look kind of complicated, The other two healing classes are way easier, and you pretty much have to start from level 1 with both of them, whereas these two are kind of like advanced healing classes that were added after the fact. The complicated part of Astrologian is that you have to shuffle a deck and you have to play cards that you draw at random. Also, Sage is, Sage just shoots a bunch of shields, and one of the skills you're supposed to put on the tank, so when you're doing damage, you're actually healing the tank. So it's like, if you want to be a healer but you also want to do a lot of damage, then Sage is probably up your alley. And Sage starts at level 70 or 80, I believe, so you don't have to start all the way at level 1. You just have to learn all your moves really, not quickly, but really efficiently. Just make sure you study your stuff before you get into groups with people, so you're not making them frustrated with you. The easiest healer probably is the white mage. It's what you typically think of it like a healer. It's a HP healing class, and besides the bubbles that heal over time and all the oh crap healing buttons that you have to heal any tank through pretty much anything, white mage is probably the one you're going to want to go for. And scholar is like the summoner version of a healer. Basically the scholar summons like a fairy that pretty much helps heal. And to be honest, in my opinion, I would say scholar's probably easier healer than white mage. I think white mage is just safer to pick, like if you don't want to mess up. But like, I don't know, just from playing scholar, it was just like the easiest healing class. But I like to main Astrologian, not just because I want to pick the more difficult class. It's just, I don't know, astrology, and they put it in the game as like a healing class, or it's like you draw tarot cards and play them on the field. It's like Yu-Gi-Oh! It's cool. Now, when I draw blue cards, those are for melee. So those are for high priority on the tank, and then any melee DPS. If you get purple cards, those are for you, the other healer, and then if you have a third purple card, and then you have like a ranged DPS in your group, you can give that person the third one. But that's basically how I play as Astrologian, how I pick which cards to play. This is only level 50, so there's a lot of abilities that aren't being used. I wish I had shield mitigation gameplay, but the other healer, you should see using his spells to help keep us up as well. It's just Astrologian and white mage, they heal a bigger chunk at a time. Here, let's fast forward and get to the part where we're facing the boss, so I can go over like basic things healer needs to look out for. Well, we're going to the boss right now, so oop. Actually, I'm going to speed it up here. There's another boss before the final boss, and I don't want the video to be too long, so I put this part in hyperspeed, like ×8. Alright, let's look at the final boss. One of the biggest things for Astrologian that I can think of as like advice to pass down is to make sure you're shuffling your cards, doing it off cooldown too. So you shuffle your cards, you get 3 cards, you can play them, but then it goes on cooldown before you can shuffle again. And you can go from, blue cards to blue cards, or blue cards to purple cards, or whatever. It's gonna be either blue or purple though. So just keep that in mind. Also, when you're not healing, like when everybody's all above 90%, then you gotta make sure you're doing DPS. So that's the thing about healers. You're not just only healing. You gotta do damage in between the heals too to help out, because some of these bosses have like a lot of health. And this spell I'm using, Aspected Helios, is basically my AoE heal for Astrologian. Notice how I'm using the cards. Can you see how I'm targeting the people in my party and giving them the cards? We're almost at LB3. We're still... There we go. That was easy. Healer was my main. I got all 4 of the healing classes up to level 100. But now let's take a look at tanking, which is my new main. Alright, now rounding it all out, we have tank. And the tank I mainly play as Dark Knight. There's 4 tanks. Warrior, Dark Knight, Gunbreaker, and Paladin, which is like a sword and shield. I like Dark Knight. It just uses a 2-handed greatsword. Gunbreaker uses a gunblade, like Squalls from Final Fantasy VIII. And then Warriors use a giant axe. And they say Warrior is the easiest, it probably is, because it probably has the best mitigation in the game, and Dark Knight has like the least amount, but I just like it because it's just an edgy class. And I don't know why I noticed this so late, but this is our monk, I believe, disconnected. So that's a little bit missing damage, but we still got 1 damage dealer. Yep, there we go. We're good with 3 people for now. Alright, we can fast forward this part. Yeah, so the most important thing for a tank is making sure you have enmity, which is like aggro. You can easily get this by using AoE, area of effect attacks, on mobs of creatures. Alright, we got a physical range DPS, the Dancer. Alright, now we get to continue on doing this dungeon. Making sure we have our stance on right here. It's called like grit. You gotta make sure you have that stance on because it helps you hold enmity. People will make sure that you people will remind you to put it on if you don't have it on. So don't worry about that, and don't take it like personal or anything like that, like an attack. I mean, unless they are being like a-holes about it. Alright, and that pretty much shows you how to hold the boss's attention, face him north so everybody can attack him from the rear and get the bonus damage. This is another thing you'll hear about if you go the tank route. It's called pulling wall to wall. You have to make sure the healer is okay with this because you're presumably going to take a lot of damage. Dark Knight has a special ability where if you activate it and then drop down to 0, you get all your life back. It's called like Living Dead or something like that. So that's a good spell to have, and it's good to be in communication with your healer. Make sure that your healer is basically like, make sure you guys are basically on the same wavelength. A tank needs a healer and a healer needs a tank, basically. Now for tanking specifically, I wanted to talk about the enmity list. I put it next to the party thing so I can tell who I have aggro on. If it's blinking red like that, that means I have aggro. If it's green, then that means someone else has aggro and I'm not doing my job. Yeah, so that's that. It's a good way to hold enmity is, like I said, use AoE abilities, and then we can just kill these slimes, and then now it's time to go up the ladder towards the next part of the dungeon. Oh, by the way, this is a Dawn Trail dungeon too, I believe. Yeah, because we're synced to level 92. The red arrow coming down is called a tank buster, so if you're tanking, you see that red arrow on you, make sure you apply Rampart or some sort of mitigation spell. Tanking's pretty self-explanatory though, as you can see. The only thing is it's like doing damage like we were earlier with the Reaper, except we're attacking from the front and we just try to keep the front away from anybody else so they don't get hit with like splash damage or whatever. And then when there's like extra mobs that come in, we gotta make sure we come up, pick them up, hit them with like an AoE spell, so just immediately gain enmity and then start working your rotation in. One thing I could definitely say for tanks, after playing all 4 of the healers to level 100, is that make sure you're using your mitigation whenever you can, because the more you mitigate, the less the healers have to heal. So it makes their job less stressful. It's just easier when everybody's paying attention to like what their roles are. Another thing about tanks is if you like to be the leader, or the first one in, the Leroy Jenkins if you will, then tanking is definitely for you. You're going to focus mainly on defense, but you'll also be doing DPS as well, just like healer and just like regular damage. Everybody's doing DPS. Everybody's responsible for learning their rotation to the most, efficient that they can, and then just have fun while they're doing it. Like I have the most fun tanking. I did have fun healing, but I feel like I have the most fun tanking now. I don't normally do DPS, but some people do, and there are plenty of DPS jobs or classes. Ultimately, I believe finding your role depends on what type of playstyle you want. If you want to be one of the 4 tanks, you want to lead the charge, you want to have all the attention on you, that's the role for you. If you want to make sure everybody's okay and make sure the team doesn't wipe, then healer might be for you. And if you're somewhere in between or not really sure, there's like 13 damage classes altogether, so Also, if you're unsure of a class, don't worry. You can switch classes just by switching your weapon. You can technically be every single job on one character, but you can make second or third character if you want to. It's just you have the option. In some cases, you'll need the job stones. In some cases, you'll have to do a little bit of level grinding. But some of the jobs start at high levels. All you need is the expansion, and you need to advance that far into the story before you can swap over. That's what I had to do for Astrologian. You can't start out as an Astrologian. So I started out as a conjurer, then switched over to the white mage job, leveled that up, and then you have to get that to like level 50 or something, unlock Ishgard, and then I don't know, I'm telling the whole process, but yeah, you do that to unlock Astrologian, and then Astrologian starts at level 30. So you start at level 30, and then you gotta level it up. And you get unique job and class quests with some of them having interesting dialogue and interesting cutscenes. But that's going to be it for this video. Let me know how this video is compared to my first video where I was only 800 hours in. Now I'm like almost double that. So make sure you subscribe, like if you enjoyed, and leave a comment. What class do you like?